Welcome back. I'm here today with Armen Berjikly. He is a founder of Kanjoya. Armen, welcome to today's show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So tell us your background first.
Absolutely. Happy to. So grew up in Los Angeles. I actually came up to the Bay Area to attend Stanford University. Now, much longer ago than I like to admit. Finished up there in computer science and management science and a master's degree there as well. Ended up working kind of prototypically at a networking company in Silicon Valley as a product manager, was just living sort of that path. And what led me down the path that I've gone today in the entrepreneurial world was actually some personal events. I had a very, very good friend of mine that was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which is unfortunately becoming more and more of a common condition, predominantly affects young women. And it's, if you're not familiar with it, it's an illness that affects the brain spinal cord in relatively random fashion per patient. And depending on where these inflammations and scarring happen for these patients, their mobility might be affected, their speech might be affected, or they might be relatively unscathed. It's a very uncertain kind of condition. And so as I witnessed this situation and really kind of the environment around it is, good luck, we don't know what's going to happen to you. That's really the attitude of most neurologists towards their patients. And here's some medications, but we don't know the side effect profile or particularly the impact on the condition. I thought there must be something better that we could do, at least psychologically, at least emotionally. And from my background in engineering and being very comfortable online and really having a passion for human-computer interaction in a way that technology and assisting people, I set off on a small adventure at the time to create a community for people with this condition, to bring them together and just bring them news of what's going on in the research world, right? Because I found that in my eyes, knowing about the research actually gave me hope that smart people are coming to work every day trying to eradicate this condition. And as I built this out kind of as a moonlighting situation, a community formed around it as a group of patients and caregivers and loved ones like myself that were all interested in this particular disease state. And the moment that tipped me over to starting my own company dedicated to this was an email I received from a user of the site. It was a dear webmaster because I never put my name on the property. And it was a gentleman at MS, and he said that he'd had it for 10 years, confined to a wheelchair, and he said he was about to take his own life the night before. Wow. And he said, something compelled me to search one more time last night, and he's like, I found your site that you created, and I've been up all night reading, and for the first time in this decade, I feel a little glimmer of hope. And I just want to say thank you. And that was a slap to the face of, hey, I could use my talents and my energy and my passion to not just helping multiple sclerosis community, but any, I think, group of folks that would benefit from meeting other folks like themselves. And so that was what started me off on the adventure that became Kanjoya.
You know, so how strong is the emotional aspect of our online habits?
Yeah, it's really hard to separate, actually. And it's not something that we're very conscious of, but humans are emotional creatures. We make up our minds emotionally, we then infill with logic and rationality. And so everything that we do that involves choice involves emotion in some way, shape, or form. We can use a couple examples. One is this idea of virality. When we see something go viral on YouTube or we get clips on our Facebook feed, there's a science behind that where emotion is part and parcel of that. Jonah Berger, a professor out at UPenn, makes a series of studies that show things with high arousal, awe and anger are much more likely to go viral than something that is either neutral or low arousal, such as sadness. And you can actually build essentially models to say, I think this piece of content might go viral because of the understanding of the human brain and how we react to things like that. And so that's one small example that we probably run across every single day and what we share, see, and get involved with. But it's replete in the decisions we make from what charities we support online. It's not based on how many people are affected by a hurricane. It's based on the emotional connection we feel with the town or the folks that do it. So it's amazing when you start thinking about it, just how powerful it is.
So Kanjoya, how many users do you have today?
Right. So Kanjoya is actually a multi-headed kind of property, right? So on our consumer side, I told you a story about the multiple sclerosis community. When I generalized that concept and I said, you know what, let's just bring people together on experiences that they share. That's the atomic. Mm-hmm. When we get down to the brass tacks, people bond with other folks that understand them at the experiential level. And so that website is called theexperienceproject.com. It's spelled with all of its vowels and letters correctly. Almost 20 million people come through that property every month on our mobile presence, on the iOS, on the website. And that's bringing folks together on now almost over 40 million life experiences and 80% of the users say the site has changed their life. So that very sort of genesis of how I started this has grown and blossomed, and the topics just completely range from soup to nuts, family to health to exercise to conditions like we started.
Visiting here with Armen Berjikly. He is the founder of Kanjoya. We'll be right back after these messages.
I love fishing, with my family.
I think it would be easier to use a net.
It was so much fun.
The times when we are together, it makes it all the more worth it.
Having Dad teach them how to cast a fly rod, and
as long as we're doing stuff together, we're having fun.
Some people see a father and a son fishing together, while others see a succession plan. Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Armen Berjikly. He is the CEO and the founder of Kanjoya, a company that focuses on the emotional aspect of our online habits. And I want to spend some time kind of tying this all together. Okay, we talked about Kanjoya, and then the Experience Project and the Crane Emotional Intelligence Platform.
Right.
What's the relationship between these three areas?
It's both complicated and elegant at the same time. So how we started is we built a huge social property called the Experience Project, which is my pride and joy, bringing folks together on experiences, stories, and emotions, and providing tremendous value. From that group, if anyone who's built a website, right, we're in Silicon Valley, I feel like everyone has a website. The challenge with a web property is no matter how wonderful it is, right, from Facebook through to some blog that you read, you're limited by the audience of folks that you can reach, the traffic that you have. And so with Experience Project, with 20 million people a month, that's amazing. I mean, it's a swath of society, and it continues to grow aggressively. That said, we've always had a vision, which is technology and empathy need to go to hand in hand, and today they don't, right? We want to be the next best thing to human empathy in a digital world, because we spend more time, not less, with digital devices or websites, et cetera. And so when we look at Experience Project, we're like, well, we've done a great job with a social property. And now could we take some of that same respect for humanity, quite frankly, how we make decisions and how important emotionality and empathy is in treating us as people, and bring that knowledge to the business world? And so we have that aspect to our company as well, which is the Crane platform that you talked about, which is, over this nearly a decade and over 1 billion people that have come through Experience Project, they've helped teach this corpus of how language and emotion go hand in hand. So when someone gets a puppy and is really excited, how do we express that as people? What language do we use? What words do we use? If I'm in Los Angeles, how do I express it differently than if I'm in New York? And this model in aggregate from, tens and tens and hundreds of thousands of people essentially helps us figure out, when communication happens, what is the person really trying to say, right? Because sometimes we don't use the precise words. We are able to read between the lines by acknowledging the emotionality of people, acknowledging the empathy that someone needs to receive, and therefore we can provide a better experience, whether it's social and building a better property in social media, or if it's helping a company better understand the customer service emails that are coming in. There was a replete with emotion, and today there is zero technologies out there outside of ours that would help someone understand, if that person is raging at you because their bill was too high, what could you really do to understand and empathize besides giving them, silly things like discounts on their bill? Understand them, acknowledge how they're feeling, and you can do a much better job of building a relationship between yourself as a business and your customers. And so that kind of completes our vision from the consumer side all the way through to our business partners.
When you bring emotion into it, how do you maintain objectivity?
Mm-hmm. In fact, you may not need to, right? The way I look at it is, we communicate because we want to be heard, right? In any forum possible. If it's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's Experience Project, it's this radio show, we're communicating because I hope somebody listens. I might not be a master of language. Most people aren't. But I really want to make sure that whatever message I'm trying to get across gets out there. By acknowledging the emotional side of what I'm trying to say, you can give voice to people who have been muted in some ways, who get lost in the noise. And so I don't know if it's a question of objectivity so much as it's saying, every communication matters. And by looking at all the different nuances from the language they use and the lexical models from combine it with all the kind of crazy things that I'm talking about looking at what the person's trying to get across emotionally, you can get a better picture and better meet whoever you are and whatever you're trying to do. You can do a better job of understanding, empathizing with the individual. So it's not necessarily a question of objectivity. It's actually a subjective question in that every person should get a subjective response that's tailored to what they're trying to have their need met.
You mentioned before that people are drawn on viral videos to either something that is comedy, humorous at someone else's expense, or violent. Why do you think that is? What is it that drives that within us to draw out that?
Sure. I mean, for better or for worse, it's physiology and it's neurology in many ways, right? And what you're referencing is Jonah Berger's research out of UPenn, which can tell you that very specific types of emotions create arousal in people. And so you mentioned this awe and anger are high arousal emotions. They're much more, that type of content is much more likely to go viral than something that is really sad, which is a low arousal. It's a strong emotion, but it's low arousal. And so this is just how the human brain has evolved over time, is to respond to, fight or flight. And there's all the sort of literature in that space. We really use emotions to almost like sticky notes to shortcut the things that we're encountering and prioritize what's most important. And so this is just a mapping in a lot of ways of how we process information, and a result of the fact that it's information overload on any person at any time. This isn't just a new thing with the digital era. And emotions is a shortcut for the human brain to say, okay, I need to pay attention to that right now.
So in a scientific way, you can actually launch a viral video.
We don't particularly do that part of it, but yes, absolutely. There are marketing firms that would look at something and as part of the evaluation process to say, do I think this campaign that big company X is going to do and spend $10 million on for a Super Bowl campaign, they should absolutely pay attention to the emotional resonance of things to see if it lines up with what the research would show, because your best guess and your hunch, there's no reason to do that. Right? There are technologies like ours and some others that can help you predict how someone might react to something. And in a very, I think, good way, create content that people enjoy paying attention to.
What does the future hold for Kanjoya and you?
For us, it's continuing to fulfill this vision of, providing the next best thing to human empathy in digital, right? So we'll continue to expand our social property. I mean, our goal is to be, we're a top 200 website right now in the world. Our goal is to be in the top 100 within the next 2 quarters. And that's not just something that is an egotistical trip for us. We know, and I mentioned this earlier, 4 out of 5 of our users say the site has changed their life, right? And that's had the power of connecting with someone emotionally. And so the more people use it, the better the world is. And that really does drive us. And on our business side of things, it is again saying the companies that acknowledge their customers on an emotional level, treat them like people, will be the companies that thrive. The Apples of the world, the Doves of the world, and the companies that start to ignore that, treat people as commodities and numbers. You can think about Dell, Microsoft, Sony, these companies that used to resonate. They will be commoditized. And so emotion is incredibly important for them. That's where we will try and drive.
We use the word emotion, but I also like to use the word of spiritually connecting with another person there too, because it seems that in this day and age, the more people can get to know that person just beyond the superficial level. Yes,
exactly right. Treating people like people should never go away, and digital makes, unfortunately, that relatively easy to do, and we want to fight that.
I'm visiting here today with Armen Berjikly. He is the founder of Kanjoya. He is a top 200 website. We'll be right back after these messages.
He's the world's most trustworthy man. Tax filing deadlines are scheduled around his vacation calendar. The IRS agent who audited his client apologized.
I don't always advise people on their taxes, but when I do, I save them every penny legally possible.
GrowCo CPAs and Advisors.
Come to GrowCo and stay wealthy, my friend.
Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Armen Berjikly. He is the founder and CEO of Kanjoya, a company focused on emotional analytics. So give me some examples about how emotions will drive our online decisions.
Sure. So we can think about some communal ones, like we all shop on Amazon, right, at this point. And so this is a very powerful one that it kind of dawns on you when you think about it. I just had a baby 10 weeks ago, and so I've spent a lot of time. Thank you very much. Thank you for surviving. And I've done a lot of shopping online at Amazon, and I found that as I'm going through, you can use this example where, let's say you're buying a crib, right? And you could look at all these thousands of 5-star reviews on a crib, right? Easy to assemble, beautiful, cheap, etc. And if there's one review that you come across that's emotionally resonant, and I'll give you probably a relatively terrible example. If you read one review that says, my child suffered from SIDS in this crib, and I'm not saying it's the crib's fault, but it happened and I want you to know. That's something you might find in Amazon, right? That one negative review, because of the emotional resonance, will absolutely dominate and potentially crush thousands and thousands of positive reviews that are more tactical and less emotional. And so you have to, again, kind of think about how we make up our minds. That emotional aspect is a huge part. We don't really maintain consciousness about it, but it tremendously impacts the decisions we make, the products we buy, the people we want to associate with, the content that we share and engage with.
So if what do analytics tell you about how visitors spend their time on your site?
Again, so we talk about our social property is where we really invest and learn how emotions communicated, essentially it's where we go to school in a lot of ways, and work with millions and millions of folks to understand how language, emotion, and experience come together. And so, if you look at Experience Project, it's just a tremendous place I'm so proud of. People spend over 30 minutes every time they log in. And in our short attention span world, that really needs to ring true of just how deeply that engagement is. And it's because so much of the content obviously is emotional in nature. It's storytelling is the format of the property. And you get really drawn in and invest in getting to know the folks behind those stories. And so we do see this tremendous engagement at the level of Facebook, that's the level of some of these online games. And we're proud of that, and we understand it completely because of many of the things I've been talking about how emotional resonance impacts us.
So people coming to your site, the information is self-created by them?
Sure. Yes, it's a completely democratic property. It's people sharing stories about their experiences from life. And the value that they get out of that is they meet other folks that share those experiences and stories. And so it's the idea that technology is uniting you with people who are your peers, right, in experience or in emotion. And once that connection is made, it's tremendously valuable to our audience. And to myself, I'm a big user.
Wow. So it's almost like the future, I guess, you have different user groups basically
Absolutely.
coming together.
Yeah. I mean, there's an infinite number of groups of folks. There could be young moms with husbands that are deployed in Afghanistan that have survived cancer. I mean, that's a group of people, right? And you just keep going. Any experience. It's a very honest place. We keep it anonymous, so we don't take people's names and phone numbers and track them down in any way, shape, or form. We want to keep it as comfortable as it can be. So it's just a username. And we find that people then can share what they really want to share, not worry about who's watching their back and judging them. And therefore, they can really comfortably connect with folks on an honest use of social media, which I think is a pretty novel application when you look at Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, where we're the perfect employee, perfect friend, perfect comedian. This is a place where our users often say they can let their hair down and just be open and honest.
I mean, we're running up against the break.
Sure.
We need to take a quick break. I'm visiting here today with Armen Berjikly. He is the founder of Kanjoya. It's a website that focuses on the emotional aspect of analytics and also helping to bring people with special needs together. We'll be right back after these messages.
With current laws, we have left our children an enormous financial burden. Even though they may be too young to understand it. At GrowCo, we care about you and the ones you love, and the quality of your and their lives. Call us today to see how we can help. 877-CPA-2006.
GrowCo, helping you along the way.
Welcome back. I'm here today with Armen Berjikly. He is the founder and the CEO of Kanjoya. It's a top 200 website in the world, and individuals that are looking at starting their own companies today, what advice would you give them?
No segment is long enough for this, but what I'd like to really point out is when you're starting a company, you're getting married, right? And this is something that in Silicon Valley and beyond, when I run into entrepreneurs, it's the theme that I keep hitting upon is whether you're going to start a restaurant or work at a 7-Eleven or start a company or become, an engineer at Cisco, entrepreneurial folks have this thread running within them, which is we're going to work the hardest possible with the best attitude, irrespective of what we do. We're maximum engagement. And so you only have so much time on this earth, and therefore you need to pick very carefully what you throw yourself into. So starting any company is that type of maximum engagement for much longer than you ever anticipate. And it better be something that you are passionately in love with, that you feel like you will do through thick and thin. And the opposite of what you should do is find a small business opportunity that you can exploit, or a niche market that is fantastic that you think makes sense, but you're not passionately involved with, because you will start to lose your momentum because it takes its toll. It is 100% engagement, no downtime for, as I said, much, much longer than anyone anticipates. So love, love, love what you do before you get started on it.
It's great advice, talking about having that passion in a business. How does a person discover their passion?
I think some people aren't drawn to things, and they know it, right? I know lots of people who are saying, I'm not passionate about any particular thing. And in that case, good. Don't start a company. Do what makes you happy and follow those. There are people who, they should be able to answer that question right out the bat, right? For me, I could wax forever and ever about the idea of emotion technology and treating people like people through technology, right? And so there's no doubt what I'm passionate about. I think you can see it. I don't think it's a journey of discovery for the most part. And I do think life takes you down these roads that you get little examples. I gave that story earlier about someone who wrote me an email and changed my life. Things will happen that you will react to, and you'll know right away, wow, I'm feeling some really strong, intense emotions here that I didn't anticipate. I'm drawn to this.
So knowing what you know today, what would you do differently if you had to build your company again?
I think tactically, when you're building a company, you underestimate the time it's going to take. You underestimate the amount of money and economics, right? And so one of the things that we do here is we try and raise as little money as possible. But what ends up happening is you make half decisions, right? I think if you're going to go and, for example, take venture capital, you should go take a lot of venture capital, the best that you can, so that you're well capitalized and you can pursue the vision in its purest form and not constantly be in a fundraising cycle. I think that's a very specific piece of advice that I have for people, is take more than you need. The other part is there's a strong culture here, again, in Silicon Valley that, straight out of Stanford is the number one way to go. It doesn't matter if you have experience or not. I was one of those kids straight out of the school that thought I could take on the world. As I've gotten further in my career, the value of experience, having people that have done things before and can move much more aggressively and with less sort of cycling is incredibly valuable and highly underrated. And so as our company has grown, I've really spent more time investing in bringing on folks that have that experience and fact pattern recognition. And you tend to really underestimate that when you're taking on the world by yourself.
Okay, where do people go to learn more about Kanjoya?
So you can learn about Kanjoya as a company at kanjoya.com, kanjoya.com. If you'd love to check out our social property, the Experience Project, it is experienceproject.com, spelled correctly. And those two things can give you some insights into how we really build solutions for people-to-people connections, and also to take that, I think, expertise and bring it to the business world on the Kanjoya side.
I've been visiting here today with Armen Berjikly. He is the founder and the CEO of Kanjoya. Armen, thank you for joining today's show.
It's been my honor. I'm humbled to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on America Dreams. Join us right here next week on AM 1220 KDOW.